If Warren Buffett had liquidated all of his investments, or if he had retired from investing at the age of 60, he'd be worth $11.9 million today, which is 99.9% less than what he's worth today. So hi, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about this book called The Psychology of Money, written by Morgan Housel, Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed and Happiness. So in this book, the author Morgan Housel, who is apparently an economics graduate from USC, talks about how your behavior changes when it comes to money. So of course, as the title itself says, The Psychology of Money, this book deals with the psychology of money and not the technicals of money. So in this book, the author talks about 19 strange stories or 19 stories that you possibly have not heard about, and these stories can be implemented in your life and you can change the way you manage your finances forever. So the very first chapter of this book is titled No One's Crazy. What this chapter says is that your idea of spending money might be very different from what the idea of spending money is for a multimillionaire. So if you think a person is spending a lot of money on a car and you think that it's a waste of money and that the person should not be doing it, you are thinking that that person is crazy. But for that person himself, he thinks he's not crazy because he has this idea of spending money because he likes to buy the car. He is doing that. So the very first thing to understand is that no one in this world is crazy. Everyone has their own idea of spending money. So yeah, this was the very first chapter of this book, and this chapter does a very good job of getting you hooked to this book because seeing the world in this way is not something everybody does every day. This is a very unique way of viewing the world, and it gives you a personal insight as well. The author also talks about luck and risk. So in this chapter, the author speaks about Bill Gates. So Bill Gates went to a high school which had a computer. Now, of course, in today's world, having a computer in a high school is not something new. Almost every school has a computer in it. But at the time when Bill Gates was in high school, there was only a 1 in a million chance that Bill Gates went to the school that he went to. And so that is where he learned how to code, and that is where he, along with his friend, went on to build Microsoft. So to say this, the high school that Bill Gates went to played a huge role in one of the speeches that he was obviously called to after he had become successful with Microsoft at the school he went to. His school name was Lakeside. He said there that if there was no Lakeside, there would have been no Microsoft. So luck, again, plays a huge role in your financial journey, and you should not beat yourself up if you don't get lucky. One quote from this chapter that is really amazing is, "Success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose." This was so amazing of a quote, and this chapter really opened my eyes that not everything is going to come with hard work. Of course, you need a lot of hard work, but you cannot say that you're working very hard and yet you're not getting results. Along with hard work, you need a little bit of luck as well. The next chapter is Never Enough. One quote from this chapter that has stayed with me again that the author has written is, "The hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving." So for example, if you're an 18 or 19 year old right now, or let's say if you're a 15 or 16 year old, you will have a different financial goal. You will not be thinking about being a millionaire. Of course, you'll think that I want to be financially independent, whatnot. But once you get to that point, for example, in some future years, you get to the goal that you had set for yourself. For example, you become a millionaire one day, and that was the goal you had for yourself. After you become a millionaire, your goalpost will keep moving. So once you've become a millionaire, you'll say, now I want to earn $10 million. Or after this, I want to go on to become a billionaire. And this is where people generally get wrong. You should really try and stop your financial goalpost from moving. The author talks about Rajat Gupta. Rajat Gupta was a person who lived in the slums in India. But once he studied and he went abroad, his life completely changed. He was from Kolkata, and afterwards, after having huge financial successes, he went on to become the CEO of McKinsey, and he also was in the board of 5 companies, including Goldman Sachs. By this time, he had a net worth of $100 million. This is enough to go down to 3 or 4 generations. But again, Rajat wanted to be a billionaire. Why? Because he wanted to have the status of being a billionaire. And that is where he went wrong. He was in one of the board meetings, and while he was there, he heard that the company is making some changes which he thought would lead to a huge amount of change in their stock prices. And then he called his broker and bought huge amounts of share of that company. And later he was caught because of insider trading, that is, trading with the knowledge of what is happening inside the company, which is completely illegal. And then he went into prison. So being greedy for just getting that status of being a billionaire ruined his entire life. So getting the goalpost to stop moving, your financial goalpost, is extremely important, and it is not talked about very often. So compounding. I've talked about this in one of my recent videos as well, and I'm sure that by now you might have heard about it as well. Compounding is a very powerful tool, and not many people actually understand the true power of it, and many people generally underestimate it. So to get a general idea of what compounding actually is, say that you had invested 1000 rupees in a mutual fund that gave you a 10% in returns per year. The next year, your 1000 will become 1100 because of those 10% returns. The year after that, your profit will be on those 1100 rupees together and not on those initial 1000 rupees. So this year, your profit also goes up. And these changes for the first few years will not be as much as you'd think. But once you grow the patience and once your money stays in for a long amount of time, the amount of money you have generally skyrockets. So to get an idea of this, let's talk about Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, if you don't know, is a huge investor, and he is one of the richest persons in the world only because of investing. If Warren Buffett had liquidated all of his investments, or if he had retired from investing at the age of 60, he'd be worth $11.9 million today, which is 99.9% less than what he's worth today. So as you can see, for the first few years, that is till he reached 60, his returns were not quite as high as you'd expect. But after that, now he's become one of the richest persons in the world with his net worth over $80 billion. Now let's talk about getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. So the main theme of this chapter of his book was survival, right? Now let's talk about the 2008 financial crisis, in which the world's stocks had completely fallen and the economy all over the world was suffering. So for example, if you're a person who had started investing in 2006, right? If you started buying shares in 2006 and you kept on doing that, but in 2007 and 2008, you see that the stock market is completely falling down and all of your share prices are going down. So at this point actually defines your temperament. If you take out all your money right now, you're actually getting a loss from what you had invested, so you're actually losing money. But if you think that everything is going to be alright afterwards and you kept your money even when the world was at the brink of collapse, you later see that all of your investments go up, and after 2008 and 2009, 2010, your investments have actually skyrocketed. So getting wealthy versus staying wealthy, this is the major difference. For staying wealthy, you need to have the right patience and the right temperament with your investments or with saving your money. If you lose and if you take out your money in these times of stress, you're not ever going to stay wealthy. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, is priceless. It is the highest dividend money pays. So this chapter, as you might have made out from this quote, is about freedom. So in the end of the day, no matter how much you're earning, no matter what job you're doing, and no matter how rich you are, if you don't actually have control over your life, if you don't have that required freedom, you're not actually living the life you want. So the author gives one story about himself when he's talking about freedom, that after he'd finished his college, he got into a dream job of investment banking. Now, many people today are attracted to investment banking because of the huge amounts of money it pays. It is not wrong if you're actually interested in trading and stocks and everything. It is really a good job as well. But what people try to not think about is how much this job demands from you. The regular work days start at 7 a.m. in the morning and they go directly up to 11 p.m. in the night. So there is absolutely no work-life balance in this, but you granted get a huge amount of money from this. But again, is it worth it? You're earning this much money, but you're not actually getting time to spend any of it, or you're not actually living your life. You're just working to get the money, but then what? So don't get me wrong, earning money is also important, But apart from this, along with this, you need to also be living your life. So remember, no matter how you're earning, no matter how much you earn, always think of doing what you think is good for you or what you'll actually love doing. Wealth is what you don't see. One quote again from this book is, spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. Now, if you were to tell me to pick out one quote from this book that resonated the most with me, it would be this one. Of course, if you go to see about it, wealth is what you don't see. So for example, you see a person driving a very expensive car on the streets. Now, the money that he spent on this car is the money that he no longer has. He has spent that money already. So you have to be really careful about what you're buying. So let's talk a bit about the Diderot effect. What this says is that whenever you buy one thing, this thing will most generally lead to another purchase, and that will lead to another purchase, and that will lead to another purchase, and so on. So for example, if you buy a camera, right, you might think that I'll buy this camera right now, but as it is so expensive, I'm not going to be buying anything else regarding that. But of course, as you've bought the camera, you'll need to buy some lenses. Now you buy the lenses. After you've bought this, you'll think that I need a bag to keep these lenses in, so you will buy a nice posh camera bag. After that, you'll think that I need to buy extra batteries because the battery in this camera is dying off pretty quickly. Then you'll buy cleaners, and then so like this, one purchase is going to lead to another, and this spiral never stops. So that is why you have to be really careful on what you're spending your money on. Another chapter that I wanted to talk about is surprise. So for many years now, investors and even traders and even people who are new to stock markets have been going by the historical references. Of course, even I'm guilty of that, and even I sometimes try to think about what will happen in the future just looking at what has happened in the past. Now, the author says in the book that history is the study of change, ironically used as a map of the future. Now, of course, in some cases, it might be right to use it as a rough guide of what is going to be happening in the future. But again, history tells us about the surprises that have come about in the past. So always using it to guess or to, assume what is going to happen in the future is not right. So whenever you're planning something, you also have to plan something if the plan does not go according to plan. Because surprises are bound to come by and they'll keep coming. So for example, you had the dot-com bubble in the 90s, then you had the 2007-2008 housing market crash, and these crashes will keep coming, even though the crash that happened because of COVID-19, and these crashes will keep on coming in the future as well. So you have to be really prepared for that. And as I spoke earlier in the video, your real temperament comes out in cases like these. So yeah, these were some of the basic concepts and some of the key takeaways that I got from this book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. But of course, watching this video is not a replacement for actually reading this book. It is not a huge book. It is only about 200 pages. So if you have the time, I'd really suggest you to go to this through this book once. And it is written very recently. So it was written in 2020 itself. So this is quite in sync with the current times. So I'd really suggest you to go read this book right now. I'll put down the link for this in the description as well. So yeah, I hope that this video is helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with another video very soon.